It's Fred Weems again, and this is the fourth and final installment of my video reading of Herman Melville's The Paradise of Bachelors and the Tartarus of Maids. And to fill you in the first part, The Paradise of Bachelors, our narrator visited a genteel men's club at the Temple Bar in London with a bunch of lawyers of the Temple Bar who had a feast with wine and snuff, and he had a great time. And then the action moves for the Tartarus of Maids into New England, as the narrator, who is actually a purveyor of seeds, is taking a sleigh ride down a steep, snowy ravine to a desolate area where there is a factory, and there are many women who work there, and it is a paper mill. And he's being given a tour by some fellow named Batch, and then the Batch hands him over to this young fellow who he calls Cupid. Anyway, the latest thing they see, I'll redo the last paragraph, is a bunch of little cutting edges on a paper making machine, with very sharp edges. They are scythes. And he says to the guy, yes, murmured I to... Here's the narration, and then he has a little dialogue. Yes, murmured I to myself, I see it now, turned outward, and each erected sword is so borne, edge outward, before each girl. If my reading fails me not, just so, of old, condemned state prisoners went from the hall of judgment to their doom, an officer before, bearing a sword, its edge turned outward, in significance of their final sentence, so through consumptive pallors of this blank, raggy life go these white girls to death. Those scythes look very sharp, again turning toward the boy. Yes, they have to keep them so. Look, that moment two of the girls, dropping their rags, plied each a whetstone up and down the sword blade. My unaccustomed blood curdled at the sharp shriek of the tormented steel. Their own executioners, themselves whetting the very swords that slay them, meditated I. What makes those girls so sheet white, my lad? Why, with a roguish twinkle, pure ignorant drollery, not knowing the heartlessness. I suppose the handling of such white bits of sheets all the time makes them so sheety. Let us leave the rag room now, my lad. More tragical and more inscrutably mysterious than any mystic sight, human or machine, throughout the factory, was the strange innocence of cruel-heartedness in this usage-hardened boy. And now, said he cheerily, I suppose you want to see our great machine, which cost us $12,000 only last autumn. That's the machine that makes the paper, too. This way, sir. Following him, I crossed a large, bespattered place, with two great round vats in it, full of a white, wet, woolly-looking stuff, not unlike the albuminous part of an egg, soft-boiled. There, said Cupid, tapping the vats carelessly, these are the first beginnings of the paper, this white pulp you see. Look how it swims, bubbling round and round, moved by the paddle here. From hence it pours from both vats into that one common channel yonder, and so goes, mixed up and leisurely, to the great machine. And now for that. He led me into a room, stifling with a strange blood-like abdominal heat, as if here, true enough, were being finally developed the germinous particles lately seen. Before me, rolled out like some long Eastern manuscripts, lay stretched one continuous length of iron framework, multitudinous and mystical, with all sorts of rollers, wheels, and cylinders, in slowly measured and unceasing motion. Here first comes the pulp now, said Cupid, pointing to the nighest end of the machine. See, first it pours out and spreads itself upon this wide, sloping board, and then, look, slides, thin and quivering, beneath the first roller there. Follow on now and see it as it slides from under that to the next cylinder. There, see how it has become just a very little less pulpy now. One step more, and it grows still more to some slight consistence. Still another cylinder, and it is so knitted, though as yet more though as yet mere dragonfly wing, that it forms an air bridge here, like a suspended cobweb between two more separated rollers, and flowing under the last one and under again, and doubling about there out of sight for a minute among all those mixed cylinders, you indistinctly see it reappears here, looking now at last a little less like pulp and more like paper, but still quite delicate and defective yet awhile. But a little further onward, sir, if you please. Here now, at this further point, it puts on something of a real look, as if it might turn out to be something you might possibly handle in the end. But it's not yet done, sir. Good way to travel yet, and plenty more of cylinders must roll it. Bless my soul, said I, amazed at the elongation, interminable convolutions, and deliberate slowness of the machine. It must take a long time for the pulp to pass from end to end and come out paper. Oh, not so long, smiled the precocious lad, with a superior and patronizing air. Only 9 minutes. But look, you may try it for yourself. Have you a bit of paper? Ah, here's a bit on the floor. Now mark that with any word you please, and let me dab it on here, and we'll see how long before it comes out at the other end. Well, let me see, said I, taking out my pencil. Come, I'll mark it with your name. Bidding me take out my watch, Cupid adroitly dropped the inscribed slip on an exposed part of the incipient mass. Instantly my eye marked the second hand on my dial plate. Slowly I followed the slip inch by inch, sometimes pausing for full half a minute as it disappeared beneath inscrutable groups of the lower cylinders, but only gradually to emerge again, and so on and on and on, inch by inch, now in open sight, sliding along like a freckle on the quivering sheet, and then again wholly vanished, and so on and on and on, inch by inch, all the time the main sheet growing more and more to final firmness, when suddenly I saw a sort of paper fall, not wholly unlike a waterfall. A scissory sound smote my ear, as of some cord being snapped, and down dropped an unfolded sheet of perfect foolscap, with my Cupid half faded out of it, and still moist and warm. My travels were at an end, for here was the end of the machine. Well, how long was it? Said Cupid. 9 minutes to a second, said I. No, 9 minutes to a second, replied I, watch in hand. I told you so. For a moment a curious emotion filled me, not wholly unlike that which one might experience at the fulfillment of some mysterious prophecy. But how absurd, thought I again. The thing is a mere machine, the essence of which is unvarying punctuality and precision. Previously absorbed by the wheels and cylinders, my attention was now directed to a sad-looking woman standing by. That is rather an elderly person so silently tending the machine end here. She would not seem wholly used to it either. Oh, knowingly whispered Cupid through the din. She only came last week. She was a nurse formerly, but the business is poor in these parts, and she's left it. But look at the paper she is piling there. Aye, foolscap. Handling the piles of moist, warm sheets, which continually were being delivered into the woman's waiting hands. Aye, foolscap, handling the piles of moist, warm sheets, which continually were being delivered into the woman's waiting hands. Don't you turn out anything but foolscap at this machine? Oh, sometimes, but not often, we turn out finer work, cream-laid and royal sheets, we call them, but foolscap being in chief demand, we turn out foolscap most. It was very curious. Looking at that blank paper continually dropping, my mind ran on in wonderings of those strange uses to which those 1,000 sheets eventually would be put. All sorts of writings would be writ on those now vacant things. Sermons, lawyers' briefs, physicians' prescriptions, love letters, marriage certificates, bills of divorce, registers of births, death warrants, and so on, without end. Then, recurring back to them as they here lay all blank, I could not but bethink me of that celebrated comparison of John Locke, who, in demonstration of his theory that man had no innate ideas, compared the human mind at birth to a sheet of blank paper, something destined to be scribbled on, but what sort of characters no soul might tell. Pacing slowly to and fro along the involved machine, still humming with its play, I was struck as well by the inevitability as the evolvement power in all its motions. Does that thin cobweb there, said I, pointing to the sheet in its more imperfect stage, does that never tear or break? It is marvelous fragile, and yet this machine it passes through is so mighty. It never is known to tear a hair's point. Does it never stop, get clogged? No, it must go. The machinery makes it go just so, just that very way, and at that very pace you see there plainly No, it must go. The machinery makes it go just so, just that very way, and at that very pace you there plainly see it go. The pulp can't help going. Something of awe now stole over me as I gazed upon this inflexible iron animal. Always, more or less, machinery of this ponderous, elaborate sort strikes, in some moods, strange dread into the human heart, as some living, panting behemoth might. But what made the thing I saw so specially terrible to me was the metallic necessity, the unbudging fatality which governed it, though here and there I could not follow the thin, gauzy veil of pulp in the course of its more mysterious or entirely invisible advance, yet it was indubitable that, at those points where it eluded me, it still marched on in unwavering docility to the autocratic cunning of the machine. A fascination fastened on me. I stood spellbound and wandering in my soul. Before my eyes, there, passing in slow procession along the wheeling cylinders, I seemed to see, glued to the pallid incipients of the pulp, the yet more pallid faces of all the pallid girls I had eyed that heavy day. Slowly, mournfully, beseechingly, yet unresistingly, they gleamed along, their agony dimly outlined on the imperfect paper, like the print of the tormented face on the handkerchief of St. Veronica. "Hallo! The heat of the room is too much for you," cried Cupid, staring at me. "No, I am rather chill, if anything. Come out, sir. Out, out." And with the protecting air of a careful father, the precocious lad hurried me outside. In a few moments, feeling revived a little, I went into the folding room, the first room I had entered, and where the desk for transacting business stood, surrounded by the blank counters and blank girls engaged at them. "Cupid here has led me a strange tour," said I to the dark-complexioned man before mentioned, whom I had... Cupid here has led me a strange tour," said I to the dark-complexioned man before mentioned, whom I had ere this discovered not only to be an old bachelor, but also the principal proprietor. "Yours is a most wonderful factory. Your great machine is a miracle of inscrutable intricacy." "Yes, all our visitors think it so, but we don't have many. We are in a very out-of-the-way corner here. Few inhabitants, too. Most of our girls come from far-off villages." "The girls," echoed I, glancing round at their silent forms. "Why is it, sir, that in most factories female operatives of whatever age are indiscriminately called girls, never women?" "Oh, as to that, why, I suppose the fact of their being generally unmarried. That's the reason, I should think. But it never struck me before. For our factory here, we will not have married women. They are apt to be off and on too much. We want none but steady workers, 12 hours to the day, day after day, through the 365 days excepting Sundays, Thanksgiving, and fast days. That's our rule. And so, having no married women, what females we have are rightly enough called girls." "Then these are all maids," said I, while some pained homage to their pale virginity made me involuntarily bow. "All maids." Again the strange emotion filled me. "Your cheeks look whitish, sir," said the man, gazing at me narrowly. "You must be careful going home. Do they pain you at all now? It's a bad sign if they do." "No doubt, sir," answered I. "When once I have got out of the devil's dungeon, I shall feel them mending. Ah, yes, the winter air in valleys or gorges, or any sunken place, is far colder and more bitter than elsewhere. You would hardly believe it now, but it is colder here than at the top of Wodelore Mountain." "I dare say it is, sir, but time presses me. I must depart." With that, remuffling myself in dreadnought and tippet, thrusting my hands into my huge sealskin mittens, I sallied out into the nipping air and found poor Black, my horse, all cringing and doubled up with the cold. Soon, wrapped in furs and meditations, I ascended from the devil's dungeon. At the Black Notch I paused, and once more bethought me of Temple Bar. Then, shooting through the pass, all alone with inscrutable nature, I exclaimed, "Oh, paradise of bachelors, and oh, Tartarus of maids!"